SBC Trommel Zwei, the EX boss raid of Season 2 in Sword Art Online Fractured Daydream, is the most chaotic boss fight in the game so far, with constant hazards roaming around you, and this guide aims to give you a better chance of survival by helping you prep for it, as well as familiarizing with all the attack patterns, how to as reliably as possible avoid them, hidden dangers that everyone always falls for, and more. So without further ado, let's dive in. First off, let's talk about the rewards for the EX raid this season. We have a new hat accessory as well as 2 t-shirts that were added to the pool this time around. Aside from these cosmetic items, EX Boss grants a huge amount of XP both for your player level and character level. If you are doing the EX Boss, you likely don't need the player XP, but character XP is particularly sweet if you can combo it with Fuka M or Pito Hui's additional 50% boost for this season. On the equipment side, it is a lot more interesting this season as well. You were already guaranteed an epic and a legendary drop, but now the EX raid actually drops equipment above the current level cap. Weapons and accessories can drop up to level 135, making it the only way to earn superior items, which was a really nice incentive. This goes without saying, of course, but do not bring in your level 1 Pito or level 1 M with rank 1 equipment on these. You're not forced to be top rank for EX raids, they are not that extreme, but you know, at least have rank 100 plus equipment on them, even if the characters themselves are rank 1, which is difficult but fine. Your attack will be relatively low, but rank 100 equipment will at least ensure your survivability, which is what truly matters in EX raids. You die, people scramble to revive you, and especially due to the patterns of this specific boss, it often snowballs into even more chaos, which is the primary thing to avoid in this fight, adding more to the chaos. Second most important thing, stack up on wind resistance perks on your accessories. All elemental resistance is acceptable here, as that only has a minimal difference. You must absolutely have them or you are toast. And again, that survivability is the priority to prevent death snowballing here. Third is your actual weapon choice. If you're confident in your survivability, go in with a fire element weapon for bonus damage. If your character is over level 50 or level 60, you can easily go for an advantageous weapon here, the fire element for this boss. If you're shaky on survivability, go in with a non-elemental weapon, which will give you additional damage resistance. At no point should you be using any other element weapons, as the boss will resist all of them. Last but not least, the arena for the EX raid features an additional threat. There are now additional laser beams that are constantly present on the arena. I will get into more detail in the actual fight as their patterns change throughout the boss phases. However, these beams function as the roar mechanic of this boss when it didn't have a roar mechanic in its original version. These beams do not paralyze, they do not stun you, so resistance for those is useless. You do not need them on your armor. What you need is roar resistance, and it will completely nullify this huge and constantly looming threat. The damage the beams deal is minimal. Their main goal is to roar lock you in place for the boss to fist you out of existence with a single move. Do not let it. Remember, if you're down 3 times, you are out. If your timer runs out, you are out. So do not die, and do revive the people around you. But there is a strat to reviving players as well. Absolutely do not overcommit. You will only cause a death snowball by dying yourself, and additionally, you can gain small advantage windows for long-winded attacks like the wind pillars by dodging into those attacks, at which point the specific beam you dodged into will no longer hurt you, so you will be able to start reviving them early while standing inside the attack safe and sound. And as always, increased dodge invincibility window perk is highly recommended here. That's gonna help you uniformly across the board. Some attacks are easier to avoid than others, which we'll get to now. The beginning of the fight is more crucial than you think. So many players waste a lot of their death tokens here because they don't realize the starting pattern of the boss itself while they're busy with the ad spawns here. In my experiences, a majority of failures are caused by carelessly losing revives this early in the game. When the fight begins, the boss will pull back from the arena and summon the portals as usual, and 2 roar beams will appear as well. While the boss will remain idle for a short bit here, it actually summons its wind pillar rockets during this phase, so do not let it staying back get you careless here, as your raid team clears the mobs quickly and doesn't know what to do but wait. What you do here is dodge! Dodge with all your might and do not get careless. Shooting up the rockets is the sign of 5 wind beam waves, and you will need to dodge all of them to continue the fight. If you're not fast enough with the ads, these will start annoying you very much as you're busy with the ad combat as well, so stay on your guard. These wind beam waves will subside after the 5th one, and the boss will approach the arena for its usual attack patterns, so this is a good time to cover the roar beams. As I mentioned in the preparation phase, these will roar stun you, and roar resistance, not stun, not paralysis, will make them trivial as they only do minimal damage otherwise. But if you don't have roar stun, you'll need to be aware of these roar beams the entire time. The first phase beams are relatively trivial anyways. Our arena is a full circle and they'll be roaming just inside the outer edge, as long as you don't stand right inside of the glassy techno edge border, or if you are a ranged character, you can stand on the techno border there, you'll remain completely safe. But we'll get to this map illustration again with phase 2 and phase 3, where you'll need to be on your toes at all times. The boss's basic attacks are otherwise quite simple. He can do a single stomp with the fist or a consecutive double stomp, and these stomps do produce shockwaves, so prepare to dodge or jump over them. He can do a thrust or a consecutive double thrust back to back. You just need to stay out of this wave, no shockwave here. And he can do a frontal sweep with instantaneous bubble bursts in the back following the sweep, and there's a very easy spot right in the very middle for you to be able to stay safe here. Aside from that sweep bubble combo, your goal is to approach for weak spot hits and bring the boss down that's on the arms, but that's how phase 1 gets you as well. I recommend not instantly going for the weak spot if you're unsure, unless you're not comfortable with dodge timing, as the entire phase 1 is riddled by wind beam rockets for both the stomp and the thrust attacks that will appear 1 to 2 seconds into the boss waiting on you for its weak spots. It's quite treacherous here. My recommendation is to stay just outside of range until the warning markers, as that will keep the attacks away from the DPS area as well and keep your entire team relatively safe too, even if you're fine dodging yourself. And one helpful tip is that you can actually expect some of the attacks beforehand, especially if those consecutive double stomp and double thrust attacks are confusing you. If one arm has all 3 lenses destroyed, that means the attack now can only end with the other arm remaining on the field. So as an example, let's just say the right arm of the boss lost all of its lenses. In this case, if the boss winds up its left arm, it is 100% going to be a single attack and not a double attack. Similarly, if it were to wind up the right arm here in this case, that means it is 100% going to be a double attack, so you can prepare accordingly. One last tip for when the boss is down, this goes general for all phases as well. The exhaust vent actually has a lower weak spot multiplier than the rest of the weak spots, so if you have a ranger or a flight character, you may want to focus on that nose appendage thingy instead of the ventilation for some additional weak spot damage if you can. Oh, right, before I forget, he also has this huge beam swipe attack that goes through the entire arena. It is very infrequent, so I'm not sure whether it can happen in all phases or not. It is an unblockable attack, so you will need to dodge it, and unless you have dodge invincibility extension perk, the timing can be quite iffy. Be very careful on this one, it hits quite hard. And I believe that's a good time to mention a neat dodging trick as well that's gonna serve you really well in all the battles. The dodge will behave differently if you're dodging forwards or backwards, or if you're dodging sideways. The animations for forwards and backwards dodge is longer, while sideways dodge animation is shorter. However, the invincibility frames are the same length regardless of the dodge. So, you have a much better chance of dodging successfully when you're spam dodging sideways in comparison to spam dodging in any other way. And just to clarify, that's sideways from where your character is turned towards and not where your camera is looking at. A good indication is that your character will do an alternate animation for side dodges. For most characters, that's a sideways spin rather than, lunging with their entire body. And if you feel like it's hard to get a sideways dodge because your character is turning too fast when on the ground when you flick the stick, just dodge forward once and then chain that into side dodges. It really helps lock in the direction in for these cases. Rinse and repeat this entire pattern, and we're off to phase 2. Phase 2 starts similar to phase 1. Boss will back away, but this time it will only spawn a wave of enemies. No portals to worry about just yet. You will also be bombarded with level ups and thus, skills to unlock. If you don't have good enough muscle memory here, don't let them overwhelm you, please. Just leave them for later. Your attention here is much more important. Two main things to worry about here. The first one is the wind beam rockets of the boss. Yes, same as phase 1, Trommel will be shooting these at you constantly during this ad phase. Luckily, this is the only time the roar beams go away for a short bit, so you will not need to worry about them for just a moment. The second danger is the type of the mobs, the two major enemies spawning in the middle specifically. Their type will be selected at random, and you need to be particularly careful if any of the two, or if you're super unlucky, both of them, end up being angry berserkers. They attack fast, they attack hard, and most people underestimate their power specifically. If anyone can freeze them, that's a huge help. If not, stay on your foes, dodge their attacks and try to take the berserker enemy out as quickly as possible. That's your biggest threat there. When you clear all the mobs on the arena, the boss will get camera focus and spawn the portal wave itself. And the previous mini portion with the ads, it was basically the warm-up run for this. With the portal spawn, the boss will no longer be doing the wind beam rocket attacks, but will properly approach the arena to pummel you instead. It will still do phase 1 attacks here, the stomps and the thrusts and the sweep and orb combo if possible, but it will overwhelm you a lot with these simple attacks until you clear the portals and the ads and get your footing back. With that, returning back to our arena layout because the two roar beams are back as well. Again, this is not a concern if you have roar resistance, but if not, these things are now super deadly. They will maintain a predictable pattern for phase 2, they are still circling the arena. However, they now have an additional movement that moves towards inside and back to the outside of the arena, so the central portion is no longer a guaranteed safe spot. The last trick phase 2 has in its sleeves is that both the stomp and thrust combos now actually have the lenses firing an additional beam right before you're allowed to do DPS them, or at least, you can dodge through the lasers as well if you want to get a head start in DPS. Otherwise, once you get your footing after the portal phase, phase 2 is pretty straightforward. Phase 3, however, is often where most attempts fail with the sheer chaos. SBC Trommel Zwei Phase 3 begins with a portal wave and the arrival of not 2, but 3 roar beams this time around, and they also have a much more unpredictable pattern. And in fact, I keep getting more and more confused as I watch different footage I recorded because their angles can be drastically different, but I think Phase 3 roar beams have a variable flower-like pattern to them that can get straight and curved over time. The illustration here should help. But at this point, it is no longer something you can pay attention to in chaos, so all I can say is watch the F out, because there are 3 roar beams with unpredictable movement. In phase 3, your priority is hovering a finger over your dodge button and spamming it at a moment's notice when required. The slam and thrust attacks are completely gone here, replaced by detachable arms doing a lot of shenanigans, and unfortunately, you'll need to adapt on the fly as this pattern change happens immediately with phase 3 with the portal wave as well. A lot to think about here. For about 20 to 30 seconds, there'll be too much stuff happening on your screen, so if you have your ultimate or awakening abilities, use them here and dispatch the portals and adds as quickly as you can. Don't worry about what the boss is doing, as its pattern, it only has a single attack that can hurt you without a warning, and that happens in the center where you shouldn't be anyways. And otherwise, just dodge spam immediately if you have a red warning on you or if a laser is approaching. Once the ads and portals are cleared, take a breath and turn towards wherever the boss is, and now you can start paying attention to its attacks properly. My recommendation here is to stay in the back third of the arena relative to where the boss is at, and I believe you can see it better if I show you in the illustration here. Not all the way back, for a reason I'll mention in a second, but around this 2/3 line specifically. It gives you a wide view of the entire arena, so you can be wary of the roar beams, and it also gives you the room to either dodge backwards or forwards depending on the incoming attack and prep quickly for a counter. As for the attacks, there are 4 distinct patterns with its arms and lenses, but watch out as you may get the occasional wind beam rocket salvos, and if you take long, which in EX raids you likely will, there's no way around it, you may get additional portal phases, in which case prioritize mobs with panic dodges here and there and return to your composure. But back to the 4 new main attacks. 2 of these will arrive at the backmost line, 1 arrives as a horizontal line in the center, and 1 as a circular circus thing, which I find it to be the most dangerous. Technically, the sweep and orbs and sweeping laser can still happen, and there is this random orbs around the arena attack, but they are so inconsequential compared to the new arm attacks that they act as a good time to breathe if they ever come to you, rather than anything to worry about. The most dangerous of the 4 attacks is the circular circus. The 2 arms plop down in the center in a circle structure without a warning, or rather not a very reliable warning. So if you do not see a warning circle on the ground, that's your cue to dodge away from the center. Only after it plops down, it will show a full 360 warning, as it will start rotating around its axis and firing random lenses without additional heads up, aside from a minimal charging animation that's part of the lens firing effects. If you're not confident with your dodging game, just dodge spam and keep yourself safe. That is the most important thing. If you're confident, you can start chasing or keep ahead of one of the lens sides to get a good position to engage the moment it stops. Once it stops, all unbroken lenses will fire 1 more time at the same time, with a warning this time around. You can dodge into the laser to get a head start on your DPS, or you can play safe and only engage after the laser is gone. This is by far the most dangerous attack in my opinion in phase 3, and it is perfectly okay if you feel like not being optimal and playing it safe. As covered at the very beginning, it's better to stay safe rather than starting a death snowball, which happens way too much in this final phase as people get exhausted, they get more panicky and all those kinds of stuff. But let's stay in the central arena for the next attack. The other one is the arms landing in the center of the arena in a horizontal line from the boss. Both arms are turned to different ways with their lenses and will laser towards their facing quadrant before turning around to target the other quadrant. You can sneak in some attacks before it turns around, but your main DPS is after it turns around and fires for the second time. It's a very predictable and easy to avoid pattern and shouldn't give you any trouble technically, but the DPS time it gives you is also very limited if you're only attacking after the turn of the laser. Now, the backline attacks. They are technically easy to dodge, but they can catch you off guard here and there and cause you to panic. The first one is the arms landing to the backline as a straight horizontal line, looking forward, so towards the boss with their lenses. The arm drop comes with a warning area, so just dodge forward for that initial slam, and I think it causes a shockwave as well. I can never tell because I'm looking forward and dodging at that point anyways, which makes it not a worry at all. Just dodge forward when you see it. They will shoot once and then they will slide towards the edge they are farther away from where they landed and shoot again from that point. It's pretty straightforward and has a decent DPS length right afterwards, and you can make that even longer by attacking as they safely slide around as well in between the two shots. As for the final attack of the 4, this is the one that can cause you some panic because it does not leave a lot of safe spots in the place that you're looking at, but you can dodge spam your way through quite easily if you cannot thread the needle and stand in a small safe spot quickly enough. What happens here is that the arms will drop to the backline again, but this time angled diagonally, and lenses will shoot 3 times back to back, creating this checkered pattern of danger on the field. That's what I mean by threading the needle here. The squares in between are large enough for safety, but when dodging, precision is not always guaranteed, so dodge spam may suit you better in this case, or just try to get yourself to their connection point in their middle, which remains as a huge safe area and makes it easier to turn around and immediately start attacking them after the lasers as well. The only problem is that with my strat of looking towards the boss to get a better sense of the entire field, you cannot instantly tell whether you got the horizontal or diagonal alignment in the bag to take the lead towards this inner area, so I don't recommend it all that much, but if you can, all the power to you. But that should cover pretty much everything. Of course, don't skip on the counter opportunities. Do the counters, they are pretty important as well, but these are the things you should pay attention to as individual attacks. Once again, I strongly recommend having roar resistance, as that will completely invalidate the main challenge of the EX raid and make it a much smoother run for you, but otherwise, I wish you all the good luck and hope to see you in raid lobbies. Stay cool.